call, please.
John Hutsko.
John Cutler.
Bob Wilbarb.
And Michael O'Brien, if you would please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Almost.
Okay, the first item is the announcement of upcoming meeting dates. The upcoming meetings are May 7th and May 21st. The approval of the minutes for March 5th. I believe we were all here, or the majority of us were here. I don't have the sheet. Why don't we just hold off on that for, we'll just hold off. Okay, the first item on the agenda is the lands of Donahue, Route 52, Prout Lane, extension of final approval.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Again, requesting extension of final approval. Just to give you an update of where we're at, we were having the application updated with the Board of Health, and there was an engineer change up at the Board of Health, and there's a new engineer that asked us to reconfigure the system slightly different. We've gone ahead and done that. The only problem with that is there's another agency involved, which is the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation and DEP. We have submitted to them, and we are just waiting on their final review. So it is a process. We are close. We hope to be done with them fairly soon.
Brian, is there any work being done out there?
As far as I know, there shouldn't be any work being done. If there's any
It's
work,
on the corner, it's all like.
we may have gone in there,
Up there or something?
we may have been in there digging around just to satisfy the health department concerns,
Right.
but I think that may have been it, to my knowledge.
Okay. Comments from the board? Comments from the professionals? Okay, 3 to 6 months, which, 6 months?
6 months would be great, just knowing the agencies involved.
Everyone amenable?
Cool.
Okay, all those, can I have a motion?
You need a motion.
Make a motion to extend lands of Donahue 6 months to, the new date would be 6 months.
6 months. 6 months. Noted.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, the next item is Melly, 2-lot on Route 52. Good evening, Keith.
Good evening.
Any updates on the project that you want to share with us?
We discussed everything at the last meeting 2 weeks ago, and nothing's changed since.
Okay. No updates. Any comments from, we're going to review the neg deck. Any comments from the board? Professionals? Okay. Rather than read the neg deck, let me just kind of paraphrase it, and then if anybody wants me to go through it in more detail, I can. But basically, the planning board has determined that a proposed action described below will not have a significant impact on the environment, and a draft environmental impact will not be prepared. Again, this is the Melly lot line realignment on 955 Route 82. We have reviewed both the Habitat Suitability Assessment Report and the short EAF for this. The areas that we reviewed were stormwater quality and pollution prevention. The drawings depicted appropriate erosion control measures. There will not be any concentrated flows, and it was determined that no acceptable degradation of the water quality. So we have determined that no significant impact from the stormwater runoff from this project is expected. Questions? Stop me if we... Wetland and buffer area disturbance. The proposed project would result in a disturbance to the New York State DEC 100-foot adjacent area in 2 areas of the subdivision plan. But the proposed disturbance for the driveway would occur almost entirely within that area that was previously disturbed. And to reduce the potential impacts for wetlands, the applicant is going to be required to install posts every 50 feet Therefore, since the disturbance of the driveway is in the area previously disturbed, we've determined that no significant impacts to the wetland or the adjacent areas can be expected from this project. The endangered and threatened species I'll come back to in a second, because I want to just run through the plan. That I know that the applicant has signed the plan, but just to make those aware. Site and driveway access, again, the safe traffic conditions are provided per the guidance of New York State DOT, and no significant impact from traffic from the project is expected. So the one area that this one has had some significant scrutiny is in the area of the endangered and threatened species, where it was identified as both the Indiana bat and the Blandings turtle as potentially occurring on the project site. So to avoid impacts to the Indiana bats, the clearing activities will be restricted between November 1st and March 31st. And for the Blandings turtle, there was a historical occurrence of the species, and there was habitat suitable to support the species on the site. So to avoid potential impacts to the Blandings turtle, a threatened species mitigation plan was prepared and signed by the applicant. The points of it are that there will be a temporary restrictive barrier in the form of silt fencing. 2, that the applicant grants New York State DEC access to the site indefinitely for future turtle research. 3, for lot number 1, parcels A and B on the wetland side, posts will be installed every 50 feet. 4, for lot number 2, specifically the permanent fencing, split rail fence along the rear of the lot will be installed.
Along the buffer.
Right, along the buffer and the, yeah, good catch. 5, modify an area of upland that measures 20 foot by 20 by 400 square feet total. That's basically a nesting area for habitat modification, and it's described as, being brought down to bare soil, nestled within a naturally vegetated adjacent area, wetland area. 6, the land modification will be completed by hand digging. 7, the maintenance of the proposed modified habitat will occur on a yearly basis. 8, the Blandings turtle fact sheet and guidance to the backyard turtle conservation has been provided to the landowners. 9, water control structures such as drain pipes should have storm drain grates. 10, below-ground swimming pools should be surrounded by fencing to exclude the turtles. And those are described as, 12-inch high barriers. 11, window wells will have to have grates. 12, any excavation work done between April 14th and October 15th has to be backfilled on the same day. And as for monitoring, the DEC will be notified upon the implementation of the project. 2, the report submitted to the New York State Education on Blandings turtle nesting season for the first 5 consecutive years. And then lastly, the additional monitoring shall be completed if requested by the New York State DEC. So those are the turtle mitigation plan. So based on that, based on a review of New York CRR 617.7, there appear to be no significant adverse environmental impacts. So could I have a motion to adopt the negative declaration? Second? Okay. Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, the motion carries. Okay. Anything before we go to the resolution? Could we have someone offer the resolution, please?
Okay. The resolution of preliminary and final subdivision approval. The subdivision and lot line adjustment for Richard Mealy. The name of the applicant is Richard Mealy. The location is Route 82 and Turner Street. Resolution is offered by Planning Board member John Cutler. Whereas the applicant has applied for subdivision approval to create a total of 2 lots and adjust the lot lines of another. And whereas the action is considered to be an unlisted action under seeker.
Excuse me, it's actually, you're going to have to change the sentence to say it's an unlisted action under seeker for which a coordinated review was undertaken. Okay.
Which was okay,
Instead of was not.
so it was not.
It actually was.
Was, yes.
As opposed to was not. So get rid of the not.
Get rid of the not.
Strike the not.
Strike the not, was undertaken. And whereas the planning board, after carefully reviewing all of the submitted materials and documentation for the proposal, determined that the project would not have a significant adverse impact on the environment, and accordingly adopted a neg deck declaration on April 16, 2013. And whereas public hearings were held beginning September 4th, 2012, and concluding on November 20th, 2012. Whereas the planning board finds that there will most likely be no other changes or approvals required between the preliminary and the final plat, that a final public hearing is not necessary, and a final approval can be granted simultaneously. And whereas the applicant has submitted an application for preliminary and final approval, now therefore be it resolved that the planning board hereby issues a preliminary and final subdivision approval for the above project known as represented on a map entitled Subdivision and Lot Line Adjustment for Richard Mealy, prepared by Cronin Engineering, dated June 28, 2012, and revised through August 24, 2012.
That should read March 1st, 2012, 2013.
It should be March,
March 1st, 2013.
March 1st, 2013. And be it further resolved that this approval is subject to the following modifications and conditions where are deemed necessary prior to the applicant's submission of a subdivision plat in final form. The modifications set forth in the town engineer's letter of March 22nd, 2013. Number 2, no work shall commence on the site until the subdivision plat is filed with the county clerk. Number 3, the plat shall be subject to the approval of any easement or deeds by the town attorney. 4, the plat will contain the written approval and/or certificate of no jurisdiction of the Dutchess County Health Department before it is signed by the chairperson. 5, great detail has been given to the wetlands and its boundaries due to the DEC comments and the need for an Article 11, the incidental take permit, being required due to the blanding turtle. The terms and the conditions of Article 11, is it Article 2 or 11?
11.
11, right? Permit shall be on a note on the final map. On the Mylar within the boundaries of each proposed lot, the following note will be placed. Prior to the issuance of a building permit, the planning board shall review and confirm that the plot plan submitted for the building permit complies with all of the conditions herein. 6, payment of downstream drainage fee of $500 and/or before the map is signed by the planning board chair. 7, since there are no set aside of land for recreation, the applicant shall pay a recreation fee of $6,000 on or before April 23, 2013. 8, the requirement of New York State DOT driveway permit work will be done prior to the filing of the map. 9, all of the terms and conditions of the negative declaration adopted herein is incorporated herein and deemed to be conditioned hereof. Be it
Okay.
okay?
Just pause.
Any others?
Any others that we need to add?
Can I just, there seems to be a contradiction between number 2 and number 8.
And number 8.
There's going to be some work required to do the DOT stuff before the map is filed, so
Okay.
number 2, should modify that to say excluding DOT work.
How about excluding work
Excluding.
detailed in item 8?
That's fine.
Okay? Any other comments?
No.
Okay.
Okay, be it further resolved that within 5 business days of the adoption of this resolution, the chair or other duly authorized member of the planning board shall cause a copy of this resolution to be filed with the town clerk and a copy sent to the applicant and owner.
Do I have a second? Thank you.
Second.
Jason? Okay, the votes as follows. John?
Yeah, yeah,
do it.
yeah. Yeah, I agree.
Aye.
Aye, that's the word I was looking for.
Jason? John?
Aye.
Sorry. And Bob?
Aye.
And I vote aye. Your motion carries.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay. Pass those to Pam.
I know, there was way too many.
Okay, next item is Banano, 4 lots on Mountaintop Road. Who's here for Banano? Banano?
Banana? No.
Yes, we have no Banano? No Banano. Do we adopt the neg deck in their absence?
Why not? Where's the town attorney?
No, I'm sorry, we can't do that.
You can't do that, okay. He's not
What
here,
do
right?
you think? Should we adopt the neg deck in their absence or not?
I mean, I don't see why we can't. And he needs the neg deck so he can get the DEP holes dug. DEP won't let them continue with
Right.
their investigation until he has the neg deck, so.
Okay,
And we probably should have done it last week, so. I mean,
Okay.
last meeting, so go ahead.
so let me, if folks are all right, if you want me to paraphrase versus read it, take.
Go right ahead.
Paraphrase,
Just vote.
pleasure of the board, okay. Okay,
Let him paraphrase.
come on.
Michael's in charge.
He's
I was gonna say,
He's the boss.
I'm trying to look impressive here. Okay, negative declaration, this was, this one again, that pertains to the subdivision plat for Banano on 181 Mountaintop Road. The Town of East Fishkill Planning Board has determined that the proposed action described below will not have a significant effect on the environment, and a draft environmental impact statement will not be prepared. The following documentation was analyzed in making this determination. The full EAF to the pre- and post-drainage report, and a full SWIP. We're all evaluated as this. We evaluated 4 points. The first one being stormwater management. Basically, the main facts on this one are that the site is situated in the New York City Department of Environmental Protection, east of the Hudson watershed, so as such, those bodies are involved, both the DEC and the DEP. It was determined that the site plan drawings and the SWIP depict appropriate stormwater management practices that are intended to offset any possible impact related to stormwater runoff, and that there will not be an increase in the amount of runoff rate. So based on these aspects, the project will not pose a significant impact to the environment. 2, the wetland area disturbance. There was no disturbance of wetlands buffer is proposed, so as such, no significant impact from disturbance of wetland or buffer areas is expected. 3, the threatened and endangered species. Due to the project's site's elevation above 900 feet, the site does not have the potential to contain Indiana bat habitat. So there will be no impact to Indiana bat from the project. And then lastly, the site and driveway access. Safe traffic conditions are provided per town highway specifications, which this meets, and as a result, no significant impact from traffic for this project is expected. So upon analysis of these issues identified, elaboration of the basis and reason for this determination, that there will not be a significant impact on the areas of environmental identified in Section A. So based on that, this negative declaration was authorized at a meeting of the Planning Board for the Town of East Fishkill held on April 16th, 2013. Could I have a motion to adopt the neg deck?
So moved. Second.
All those in favor, say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Okay. The negative declaration has been adopted. At this point, without the applicant here, I really think that's pretty much all we're going to do with this tonight, correct?
But that allows them to go forward.
It allows them to go forward. So, anything else before we close this item? Okay. Motion carries. Next up is Missing Church, Route 52. We asked that someone come and talk to us about the grinding plans or the stone efforts,
yeah.
both the hours of operation and the dust control, et cetera. Why
We'll
don't you-
be, all right, we're gonna crush from the hours of 8 o'clock till 4:30 maybe. We'll be using water to control the dust.
Okay.
It's a pretty simple process. We're just looking to keep the trucks off the road and use the material that we've generated on site for more, for parking lot use and curbs and sidewalks and things of that nature. So all the material that we process will be reused on that site
Is there
as
enough
opposed to
material?
hauling material in.
Is there enough material to use on site?
Yes, yeah.
So you
If we didn't crush it, we would have to
Right, and
haul out and haul back in almost 200 loads of material as opposed to using what's on site.
5 days a week?
I was gonna say.
5 days for about a week and a half.
Okay.
Yeah, there's just only about
All right,
1,800
not Saturday?
ton of material. No Saturdays.
All right, because in our resolution, we have Saturdays.
Let me ask a question. I mean, how long is this operation going to go on? What's the planned elapsed time?
A week and a half.
A week and a half.
Yeah.
But starting and ending approximately?
Starting April 29th. Give or take a couple days. And we hope to complete it within a week.
Okay.
Hey, Scott, is there any issues out there?
In terms of just the site construction?
Well, I was just reading the SWIFT compliance report from Rick. I noticed one of the items here says all erosion and sediment control measures installed properly, and it says no.
I'm sorry, what was that last sentence?
Yeah, but you gotta read, I don't have the copy in front of me, but you gotta go in, does it give it should give at the back end, like a little summary
Nope.
to say
I have-
what it is?
I have a one-pager.
Well, most recently, he wants us to extend our construction entrance another 20 feet.
Okay.
Outside of that, that's the only thing that's not in compliance. It's just extending that entranceway, which we just installed. There was no need for it prior to last week because we were staying on the pavement, entering the construction site. Now we've removed that section of pavement and installed the construction entrance, so it just needs to be extended a little bit,
Okay.
which is one load of material. Short of that, all the silt fence is in place, there's hay bales in place.
Yeah.
Is that good? Or
Yeah.
professionals, any comments? Okay.
Is somebody gonna be monitoring
Yeah,
every day, or?
I think as necessary.
Who? The,
It'd be someone from my office.
okay. Okay, could we have somebody offer the resolution?
Where's
Me
the
too?
resolution? Where's the resolution?
I've got it.
Dude,
Oh, you got it? John, go
Yeah,
ahead.
please.
Yeah, go ahead. Oh, here it is, yeah.
Resolution modifying excavation permit granted to Mission Church, Route 52, whereas site plan approval was granted on September 20th, 2011, for site plan on the above site, and whereas said approval included a permit for land excavation, and whereas the applicant seeks to modify the permit so as to be able to crush approximately 2,000 yards of rock found on the site and reuse the material on the site. And whereas the board deems this to be an appropriate request, now therefore be it resolved that permission is granted to crush approximately 2,000 cubic yards on the above site under the following conditions. 1, material must come from the site and be used on the site. 2, Work may commence immediately and must be completed by July 31st, 2013.
Can we change that?
Pardon?
Should we keep that date, or should we change it?
Should we change it?
Well, he said the 29th would be the start.
The start in about a week and a
About a
half,
week
so
and a
should
half.
we change it to like,
We're actually going to start sizing the rock on Friday, so we'll kind of be in that process with hammering it and whatnot.
If we put like,
the 13th, the week of the 13th of
how about,
May?
how about June 1st? As an
For
outside-
completion?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's fine.
how's that?
Yeah, I agree. June 1st?
Barring some bizarre weather event
Well-
or something.
Let me ask you a question. Now, there is going to be another portion of excavation to be done, another phase, where they're going to excavate the front of the building and build that out more. If more material is generated at that time and can be used on the site, do we have to come back in and apply again, or
So leave it as
does that get carried over for the project?
Is that part of the 2,000 yards?
No, that has not been
Oh,
excavated yet.
that's- All right.
The 2,000 yards is the rock that's been generated
Okay,
already.
I would suggest that, if that-
And I don't know that there's going to be a whole lot. It's really just a...
how about if they do
a-
encounter rock, that they just make a letter
Okay,
notifying us, and if that period of duration is gonna exceed 1 week, we'll revisit it.
More
Okay.
than likely, there
So-
won't be enough material to bother with.
Right.
so why don't we leave that as is, but you notify us by letter if when the second one, okay?
Yep.
And we'll look for Scott to kind of be the determinant of whether, okay, sorry, please.
You had said operation, hours of operation would be 8 to 4:30, not 7 to 4?
We usually start working around 8. By the time we warm machines up and get going, it's...
Okay.
All right, so with the
Can we make it
operation
7:30? You want
itself.
to make it 7:30 to 4:30?
Well, why don't we make it 8 to 4:30
Yeah, I
and then
think that's-
scratch the Saturday?
Yes.
Okay, scratch Saturday.
So hours of operation shall be 8 to 4:30 PM, Monday through Friday, and no Saturday work.
No
What
Saturdays.
what time do you start up your equipment?
We start the equipment around 7:30,
So
7:45.
And ship at
7:30 to
7:30.
4:30.
7:30.
7 to 4:30.
Hours of operation shall be 7:30 AM to 4:30 PM, Monday through Friday, and take out Saturday. 4, dust control and other generally accepted controls shall be subject to the approval of the town engineer.
Okay.
Any other additions, changes?
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, John Cutler. Okay, votes are as follows, let me see. Jason? I vote aye. John Cutler,
Aye.
John Hutsko,
Aye.
and Bob Wilbart.
Aye.
Your motion carries.
Okay, thank you. So we're good.
Yeah,
We're good?
Yeah. Sorry.
You're very good. Okay, the next item up is Montage, 126 lots on Route 52. We're hoping to do tonight again, we haven't seen this project in a while, so if we could spend 15, 20 minutes just seeing where the project is and
Yes, Mr. O'Brien. Just allow me to reintroduce myself to the board. I remember some of you, but not all of you. It's been some time. My name is Dominic Cordisco, and I'm an attorney with a law firm of Drake Loeb, located in New Windsor. We've been representing Charbel Duchess throughout its process of appearing before the town in connection with this development. There's a long-standing history here, and I would take up all 15, 20 minutes of our time if I was to go through all of that history. I think just really briefly, summarily, for the board to bring you all up to speed, and just to refresh you really quickly, is that the original project for this site was proposed to be a senior housing conservation subdivision. The proposal was actually a 275 home project at that time. That project was the subject of a environmental impact statement that went all the way to a draft environmental impact statement. It was scoped had a draft environmental impact statement, had public hearings. That project required a zoning change from the town board, which we had asked for, and the town board held a joint hearing with the planning board at the time to evaluate that proposal. And ultimately, the town board issued a determination that they preferred not to proceed with the zone change. So what we were left with was to proceed with an as-of-right or traditional design that met with the zoning, and we proceeded on that basis. The board required that a supplemental environmental impact statement be prepared to evaluate in greater depth that the board felt was appropriate compared to the DEIS that was previously done. And that supplemental environmental impact statement was also the subject of a scope that went through public scoping process. And then the draft supplemental environmental impact statement was submitted to the board, and the board ultimately deemed it complete in the late spring of 2011.
Sorry, Dominic, the scope or the impact statement itself?
The impact statement was deemed
The
complete.
draft is complete.
The draft
Yeah, the
was
draft
complete. Okay,
supplement.
right,
The draft.
okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
the dates are what they are.
It's been a while.
It has. You know, but we ultimately had two nights of public hearings. I believe they were in June and July of 2011. And then ultimately, the public hearing on that was closed. We've been working on addressing the comments since that time, and we've also had a bunch of other updates on the project. Tonight, I'd like to turn it over. We have our team with us. We have Tom Troy from Charbel Duchess, as well as Mark Canuli from Charbel Duchess as well, and Mark Day, our engineer. Dr. Phil Greeley from Mazer Consulting, and John Collins Engineering is our traffic consultant. And we also have Mike Nowicki from Ecological Solutions here in case there's any habitat or wetland questions. And at this point, I think it'd probably be best to turn it over to Tom Troy so that he can give you an overview of the current version of the project or any updates since the last time we were before you.
Okay.
So, thank you.
Thank you, Dominic. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, good evening. It has been almost 21 months since we've been back here at any formal environment, and we felt that it was appropriate to come back tonight to bring you back to speed on certain items that we're working on. We expect to be completed with our drafting of the final supplementary EIS within the next 30 to 45 days. That'll get submitted back, and that we expect will be responsive to the comments we've received to date from all your professionals, together with the comments we heard in the public hearing. You may recall one of the primary concerns, not only of the professionals, but of the public at those hearings, was the issue of where the sewer treatment plant was proposed to be located and how that could potentially affect the existing residents adjacent to the project. One of the things that I'm happy to report, and I can distribute this, we've reached a development agreement with the adjacent developer of Summit Woods over the last summer. I believe we finalized this last August. That would effectively create transportation corporations for both sewer and water that we would share ownership and operation of, proportionate to our ownership of the number of lots that we have. The agreement contemplates the first party coming in, developing the needed infrastructure, the second party reimbursing their share of those costs when and if they bring their party on. It talks about cross-access easements, it talks about specific locations, and we think it goes a long way in responding to the concerns of the neighbors. The big question is, where are we putting the sewer treatment plant? You didn't even have to say that. The original location on our project for the plant, you may recall, was right here, not far in from Route 52, adjacent to a number of existing residences. What we've done, our water, our well water location has always been in this location. After very careful analysis with our professionals as well as some Woods design team, which we happen to share, we did come up with an alternative that we feel is much more appropriate, that can and will serve those properties functionally, and removes it from any impact whatsoever to the adjacent, the existing homeowners out off of Route 52. There are a series of easements that would be granted to both projects. We would grant access and utility easements to Summit Woods, and to the extent that they were to move forward prior to our moving forward, that would give them the ability to come in, access, and develop the water treatment system. They would conversely give us access and utility easements necessary to allow us to construct the treatment plant here to the extent we came in before then. These documents will all be provided and reviewed at the time approvals are finalized, but we have the development agreement that I can share this evening. I have redacted one section which deals with business terms of land agreements that frankly we're not authorized yet to disclose, but it does talk about the concept.
While we're talking about it, the emergency exit,
Yes.
that makes sense that you can go ahead and build this unilaterally until Summit Woods materializes. What about the emergency exit, which was planned out through Summit Woods? I mean, I believe it's I'm sorry, go ahead, Tom.
This is exactly the second item that I was going to bring up. I wanted to stay focused on the utility. The second issue was certainly emergency ingress and egress. We have an agreement as well. It's not in here, but it will be memorialized and provided as part of the approval that gives us the same right to access through the Summit Woods property for emergency ingress and egress should they not be under development at the time that we need that access.
Okay.
You'd put a road in?
We put whatever was required either as a temporary road or some form of emergency access. We're not proposing this to be a primary route through the project for residential use, but to the extent the emergency services require a certain type of stabilized roadbed, that's what we would provide. As an interim basis.
Did Summit Woods get final?
No, Summit Woods is progressing on its own scale, but the concern was until Summit Woods materializes, the projects had been somewhat codependent on another. Now this removes that dependency, according
There were a
to.
number of
Well,
suggestions.
I mean, what are they gonna? Is this a sewage treatment plant that was gonna be built for Summit Woods originally?
No, actually, I think there's been discussion all along about a shared exit system, ingress and egress, as well as the shared septic system.
But wait, hold on a second, I'm not done yet.
Sorry.
Okay, sorry.
But did Summit Woods get final? Wasn't there an issue with Fish and Wildlife? Is that all
Yes.
resolved?
To our knowledge, it has been resolved. Mr. Day is here, he can.
That's all been resolved and?
Right, but that project, again, we have not seen that in even longer than since you.
I understand that,
so-
but we're gonna build a plant. I mean, was that plant sized to handle this also?
Yes.
Originally?
If I can answer, this was the original Summit Woods site for the proposed sewage treatment plant for
Yeah.
the Summit Woods site. All we're doing is changing we're regionalizing the system. We're connecting both subdivisions with one treatment plant location.
And the original one that was
Right,
for Summit Woods will handle Montage
Yes.
as well?
Yes, it was designed, the speedies permit is for a combined outflow
It was.
for both subdivisions.
All right, I just.
Okay. Sorry to throw off we're going by our checklist,
That's
Tom,
fine.
if you're okay.
I'm here to answer
Okay.
questions.
Thank you. So, I'm
I-
sorry,
I-
please
I-
continue.
I didn't want anybody to think that this, when you see this in a more formal document, that it would be the first time that you would have seen it. We
Right.
felt it was appropriate to bring that to your attention because of the concern that the public raised. The emergency access, our proposal here is that regardless of whether Summit Woods, for whatever reason, does not develop, there would be a right-of-way or temporary easement granted that would allow the construction of a suitable emergency access from Route 52 into the project. obvious location would be to bring it in along the same alignment that the ultimate roadway would be installed.
Now, is that how the sewer lines are gonna be?
The sewer lines.
Are they
will
gonna
be-
follow where the road?
The sewer lines will follow the design of the ultimate plant, the ultimate collection system in anticipation of some of what's coming online.
So that means we gotta allow, I mean, Summerwoods never happens. They're gonna be digging all that up, all through there for the sewer line, right?
Correct. Well, he's stating they're gonna get cross easements, so that
There will
could,
be easements to the benefit of the transportation corporation from both parties, from our property back to Summerwood, and from them to the transportation corporation, such that once the entity exists and the need is there, the ability to execute doesn't require any further involvement from either property owner.
Well, there's just gonna be a lot of developing happening on Summerwoods.
I think there's a lot of
property.
logistics to that, but I don't know if we need to get into all of that right now, but
Right.
we're just listening, so.
The suggestion was regionalize. We think
Right.
I
an
understand
intelligent
what it is.
method of getting there. Certainly, it needs to have the details fleshed out, but we think we can accommodate that request. We felt it was
Okay.
a substantial request. There was some further concern about access and alignment out here at Route 52. I don't know whether many of you recall, but we did represent this, and it's still the case. We have approximately 3 acres of land under agreement from the same owner that we're buying this property from on the other side. That allows us to adjust the alignment of 216 such that it becomes a true right angle four-way intersection. Dr. Greeley is here to talk about, if you so desire, where we stand today with the analysis of that intersection and what potentially could be the required infrastructure there if and when DOT, they're both state highways, so it's DOT jurisdiction as to when and if the signal needs to be installed. We're certainly prepared to defer to their jurisdiction on what that needs to be.
I don't think we need to go into all the details, but just is a signal planned from the outset, or is it going to be if determined to be needed?
I think ultimately it'll be if it's needed. I think a function of that is based on what the traffic counts wind up being and when both projects are expected to come online at the same time.
Okay.
If they come on at the same time or if they're phased, that may have some impact as to when.
So is it fair to say that it'll largely be tied to Summit Woods in terms of the additional load might force the need for light?
Mr. O'Brien, I'm not a traffic engineer. I'll be happy to let Phil explain that.
I don't want to drag you through all the
Just real
details.
quickly, the traffic study had done a warrant analysis based on background projections, even regardless of this project, at that intersection, as the T intersection. So the timing of when the signal would go in is really a question of how other traffic develops in the corridor. Are the projections, they're probably conservatively high because of the list of projects, many of which haven't gone ahead or were included in the original analysis. But I think the key here is that the intersection improvements, the widening, the turn lane, which is really needed today, the left turn lane on 52, turning on 216, that would all be done up front with the project as part of our permit. All the infrastructure would be there for the traffic signal. And DOT may, at the end of the day, have us put it in on day one. We've been through several of these where they make it a condition of the permit that if it doesn't go in on day one, then we have to look at it again after a year of opening so that they keep us under control.
Okay,
So,
thank you.
Just a couple of other points that I want to make. One is relative to the analysis of the wetland crossings in 3 locations on the project. Mikey Whitby has been working for the last almost 2 years in terms of dealing with DEC and Army Corps on the specifics of those designs. We are fairly comfortable that those permits are not going to be too much further out before they're obtained in order to allow those crossings to go in, but to the extent you have any questions that you'd like to follow up with tonight, Mr. Newby's here. Certainly the responses will be part of what we submit with the final to give you a little bit more information. The crossings themselves are going to be designed to ASHTO standards. We know there's some concern about the quality and the design and the life cycle, if you will, of those crossings. We've heard from your traffic engineer, just I think recently this afternoon, we got a memo that elaborated on some of those concerns. We're certainly prepared to respond. We believe in a comprehensive way to prove that they will in fact be substantial enough and built to a certain standard that they will have quite a long service life. And I'm not looking at these as some sort of temporary structures. Again, other than the 3 locations as indicated on the plan.
Okay, so, do you mind if I?
Sure.
So the issue was that there was the maintenance of the bridge, and, the town assuming responsibility for these bridges. So it was the quality of the bridges was an issue. 2, there was the aspects of emergency, there's a susceptibility to being stranding people on these islands, right? That was another potential issue, right? Emergency exit, their role in an emergency exit plan, right? So I believe were the issues for the bridges, as well as obviously the wetlands crossing. So those are we're good on that?
Sure.
Okay.
There was an additional concern about reanalyzing due to some time that has gone by, the turtle habitat. Mr. Angus is here tonight. He's been working with Fish and Wildlife in terms of identifying the specific habitat areas that are required to be further reviewed. That work is underway. Scott, I believe we have maybe 1 or 2 left of analysis.
We're going to start the surveys in a couple weeks. Okay.
I remember seeing this originally with Summit Woods on there. And the main bridge that connects your two, I'm gonna call them 2 sites, because to me they're 2 separate sites. If you got rid of the bridge and just connected the road in through Summit Woods, the main cut across the wetlands is eliminated. That's the one that connects your 2 different areas. That's the one.
I think then we're just begging back the same question. It's a very intelligent solution. I won't argue that point. It also will probably save a fair amount of money. But I think that brings us back to the same issue of what's the secondary means of egress from this project at that point?
Right.
There really is no back door, if you will, absent that crossing.
And the Turner property is not going to be,
Beg pardon?
sorry, the Turner property is not going to be a potential,
Tucker here?
I'm sorry, Tucker. I'm saying
I
Turner.
think the wetlands crossings here are even more
Okay.
substantial than what we have to do here, Mr. O'Brien, to get back out.
No, I'm sorry, I meant okay, never mind, you're right. You're right. Okay.
I don't have anything that I recall being quite that high up the food chain. To the extent there are any further comments that any of you gentlemen may have, or your professionals relative to where we are with this and how we intend to proceed, I'd be happy to elaborate on any of those points tonight, whether myself or with our professionals.
Please, Mike.
No, go ahead, Bob.
That's why I asked about the road to begin with, because emergency egress is normally something, it's not paved, it's cleared. The problem is that when you're gonna need something like emergency egress, is gonna be in the spring when all hell breaks loose, or when a snowstorm or blizzard hits. And that is not gonna be cleared unless somebody needs to get in there, and it then becomes sort of a semi-emergency egress. You know what I mean? It's gonna be this wide open area where you could drive through if you didn't have to go through 3 feet of snow.
I think,
You know, emergency egress is when all hell's breaking loose every place.
Mr. Wilbur, I think we
You
can
call
come
me
up with
Bob.
a
It's
solution.
okay.
And we can come up with a solution that I think would allay most, if not all, of the
Okay.
concerns that you have.
I'm just laying them out there.
This is not the first project that we've ever done that was built in phases to the point where emergency egress or temporary ingress and egress need to be provided. We've done, depending on the nature of the project, we've done as much as almost fully pave a right-of-way or half width of a right-of-way so that an emergency vehicle, fully loaded fire truck, has the ability to get in there without worrying about getting, buried up to the axle in mud, or it's difficult to clear with the snowplow. There's a lot of solutions that we can come up with here. It's really a question of, let's talk with the folks who are gonna be the guys out here when all hell breaks loose and see what they like.
Thank you. I just thought we'd sort of get it right out front.
Okay, perfect.
Okay. Now, when Mark and I spoke earlier this week, again, we referenced the AKRF letter and all those points. So I'm not going to sit here and read the letter to you. Some of the key points, though, are, one, if our professionals could get the transcripts and notes from all the agency meetings that you guys have had. Two, I think our professionals would like to be at least apprised, if not involved in any of the meetings going forward once we're locked and loaded on a path. I mean, also let me see, the mailing receipts, I mean, again, I'm not going to go through these whole things. I think you've addressed most of these points tonight, and I do appreciate you guys doing that. Any other points from, okay, yep, I'm trying to read multiple sets of notes at this time. But professionals, any key points that we've missed here? Again, I assume that the submittal in 45 days or 40 days will basically be self-contained. It's not going to reference back to previous, okay, got it. So, okay. Great. No,
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tom, I appreciate it.
Should I leave at least a copy of this?
Sure.
Yes, please.
Please.
So just so that we're clear, yeah, we'll be responding in writing to the AKRF memo, with a revised document. Is there a review memo from Morris?
Yes.
There is.
Yeah.
Okay. Could we get a copy of it?
There's also one from Hudson Valley.
Yes, we have the one from your traffic consultant. We just don't have one from your consulting engineer.
There should be. It was sent out. I can have it sent again. It was
Okay.
within the past
If you could
couple
email
weeks.
us a copy so we'd have a PDF, that would be great. Okay.
Good seeing you all, and you haven't aged a day in the last 5 years.
Your veracity is now called into question, Mr. O'Brien.
Thank you very
very
much.
much.
Appreciate your
Good
time.
seeing you all. I appreciate it. Thank you. Oh, and one last thing is we do have our court reporter. Our standard practice is to provide a copy
That's
of the
fine.
board so it assists in the minutes. It is what it is.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Of course.
Appreciate it. Appreciate your time. Okay. No, actually, thank you. I appreciate the cheat sheet. I had my cheat sheet made room. Okay. So the next item on the agenda is Hilltop Manor. Good evening.
Hi, good evening. My name is Tim Miller. I'm a professional planner. It's been a little while since I've been in front of your board, but my firm has been working with the applicant on Hilltop Manor as we've been revising the draft environmental impact statement and working with your professionals to get a completeness determination.
Okay.
And one of the items that we recognize was required further expansion in the draft EIS relates to the issue of secondary access to this property. ECFM had worked with the board over the last 6 or 7 years to come up with a plan for the interior road of this project. It has a sole piece of point of access with a loop. And in this particular neighborhood, there's one road that departs the neighborhood, it crosses a bridge, and that bridge has a rating, a deficiency rating under New York State criteria that indicates it needs improvement.
If you don't mind me stopping you.
You can do whatever you'd like.
As I understand it, though, that evaluation is substandard, and that was only referring to the deck. It was not referring to the structure underneath.
Well, the DOT, they do evaluate various components of the bridge. But when they look at a load rating of a bridge, they only look at the superstructure. So they evaluated the deck. They also evaluated the deck based on some assumptions, not actual field conditions. So currently, right now, I can update you that my firm is in the process of doing an in-depth analysis and a load rating of that bridge. We have completed the field work. We anticipate the calculations in the report to be generated within the next 2 weeks.
Great.
And one of the main structural concerns is that underneath that deck, there's, there's piers and a cap beam on top of those piers. So it's a very significant structural element of the bridge that is not being looked at or evaluated by the DOT at all when they look at that bridge.
So do you mind if I call you Tim?
Yes, that's fine.
So there really are two issues. It keeps being referred to as the emergency access, and it's really, I'm also thinking construction access. Heavy trucks,
Sure.
which I understand, potentially, there's nothing stopping trucks today from driving over that bridge.
Sure.
But that isn't to say that's a good thing. And
No,
we'll know in 2 weeks.
We appreciate that, and, I think that the planning board is, trying to find a balance between, a functioning bridge is serving as an existing community, it's serving a piece of property that's been paying taxes and has a right to be developed, and what do you do? What's the best thing to do in order to remedy the situation? We understand that, and we're eager to participate in that to the greatest extent that we can. On the issue of alternatives for access, we did take a look at that. Mike Gillespie's firm provided an evaluation of a couple alternatives for access, one of which is through the Central Hudson easement.
Right.
And I think he's provided you with a plan and profile of that, which shows the difficulty. We've got topographic problems out there that really make it, practically speaking, really, really hard to build an emergency access. And the same is true for the lands that abut this, that is owned by one of the participants one of the owners of ECFM. We've shown it with 12% grades, and even with 12% grades, we've got some substantial rock cuts of up to 30 feet in depth. So it's our view that that's not a practical solution to the issue of secondary access for this piece of property. What we do want to do, however, is to incorporate that information into the draft EIS, because we recognize that that was brought up in the scope, and as a completeness item, it bears being presented, disclosed, and evaluated. We're not going to reach a conclusion at this point in the process other than to say the facts sort of tell a story, and that story is it's going to be really, really hard to find another way out of the neighborhood.
Right.
The net is you're not going to.
Pardon?
The net is you're probably not going to.
I think that that's a fair assumption. I'm as big a dreamer as anybody, but dreams do have their limits sometimes, and
But the applicant does own a piece of property that abuts onto Carpenter Road.
he does not, actually. The applicant is ECFM, and it's a group of people, and the applicant is a participant in that. And that really needs to be stated with clarity, that the applicant is a corporation. That corporation does not own that abutting piece, nor does it have the right to use that abutting piece. For good or for bad, that's the situation. And I know that in these types of circumstances, it's nice to be able to say, hey, look, you're a participant, you should be able to, but that's not how the law works. You can't force somebody who's a participant in a corporation and then owns their own private piece of property to give a right to that corporation just because. And I know that's been an issue as we've gone along here, but I want to be real clear about that. That's the situation.
Okay.
So,
But you understand that emergency exit and construction access is a major issue here.
it's an important issue, and I understand that.
Before we leave this topic, has that bridge ever flooded?
I'm not sure about over the surface, that I'm not sure.
I've been here 20 years and never did.
It has never flooded? Okay. Okay, thank you.
I think next year we're going to get 1,000-year flood.
I was going to say, the number of 100-year storms since I've been serving on this board is numbing, but.
It does have some susceptibility because it has, it has wood piers that are located in the stream.
Right.
So, it has vulnerability from that regard.
I realize your study's already well underway, but is there any way we could get a read on that as part of that study?
What's that?
Could we get a read on that as part of that study? as is, what are the odds of that bridge flooding and not being accessible so that we have the situation that we have someplace else?
I mean, that's not something that's included, that we're doing.
They're doing a structural.
Yeah, not.
But you can't look at the elevation and the, okay.
Well, the FEMA maps can show you what the elevations are
Right.
for a 100-year storm. I mean, that's probably been determined
Yeah.
at some level, and there's an elevation of the bridge. I guess that takes 10 minutes. That's not a study, but that just sort of a comparison.
Right.
Okay.
That can certainly be done.
But
I guess, you know what it is, Mr. Chairman?
Right.
We want to move this thing forward in some fashion and get to a public hearing. Right now, we have a subdivision that conforms to the zoning. We have a subdivision that has a road that's been worked out with the planning board. And we have a piece of property that's a taxpayer. It's in a neighborhood where people have been using a bridge that we recognize needs some work. My client has indicated without question his willingness to offer mitigation in terms of the bridge and you know, some fair and reasonable participation in you know, a town road and a town structure. We're going to incorporate the profiles and the studies that were done on the alternative access into the draft EIS so that it's there. You know, it's part of the record, and obviously you've got a concern. You asked the applicant to look at it. He looked at it. This is the situation, as best I'm able to describe it. And you've got a tough job in front of us, and I know that ECFM, the applicant, has been doing their very best to try to respond to all of your concerns. We think we've done that to the greatest extent that we can right now. So we feel that it would not be unreasonable to get to a public hearing, hear what the public has to say, the agencies have to say, and get into a final EIS. And you know, it's going to be yes, no, or maybe. That's the end result of all of these projects. And we want it to be yes, and we're doing our very best for it to be yes. I don't know how that's going to fall out, you know, at the end of the day, but we do feel that we've done what you've asked us to move this thing forward. So that's pretty much where we are. I think there's a couple of engineering items that we need to respond to. Do you want to have anything to say about those?
We've worked with Joe Dennis's office, and we've done a conceptual drainage analysis on it. We've sized our stormwater basins. We've preliminary sized our pipes. There's dotting the i's, crossing the t's as far as infrastructure goes, as far as detail goes, but we wanted to really see if we could kind of move forward in the process, get some more public input before we kind of dot the i's and cross the t's, make sure we had a real project.
A couple of things, though, I just want to kind of, where do we stand with the Indiana bat and the turtles response? I thought that was still outstanding.
We have submitted new letters to the Fish and Wildlife. I actually was on the phone with Lisa Massey this afternoon. There is, as is typical in many areas in East Fishkill, there is the potential for Indiana bats on our site. And we will, you know, we've initiated the process, we'll incorporate appropriate mitigation, and we will likely seek a decision from the DEC sooner than later. But also, again, as part of the process, the letters that need to be sent have been sent. We have official responses from them that Indiana bats may be potentially a concern. There are certain things, certain simple things that we could do in terms of construction sequencing and entry. So I can't say today that, you know, there's no bats up there, but
What
it's
about
clearly
Blanding's
in
turtle?
process. What about what?
The Blanding's turtle.
The Blanding's turtles, based on it's a little less clear how likely the habitat for Blanding's turtles would be on our site. So the DEC response did indicate the potential for both the Indiana bats and the Blanding's turtles, and we will be pursuing that as we continue through the environmental process.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you. As I also understand, too, is it's your position you don't have to abide by the wetlands and steep slopes changes that have been adopted to the zoning since this process started back in, I want to say like 2003? So, is that still?
I
I don't have an answer to that, so.
Okay.
What?
Sorry, repeat the question.
So are we subject to the revised wetland?
You're not abiding by the wetlands and the steep slopes
Well, if
changes?
that's
that
what the
were-
law says, that's what the law requires. I can't see.
No, I believe, I'm sorry.
That's correct. I think when that was adopted, anything that was already in progress was excluded from that, that was, I guess it was made 5 years ago.
Right, you had already submitted your
That
DEIS.
was all done already, yeah.
Okay. Sorry, Brian?
I have one piece of information to add to that also. When, at one point, our application was for 23 lots, and under that lot count, we would have had to rely on the previous calculations of steep slopes. We are actually down to 21 lots, and although we would be entitled to rely on the old standard, I believe that with the 21 lot count, we actually would fit the current regulations.
Okay. Let me ask the professionals, I mean, is this ready to go forward to a public hearing? I mean,
I know that they have been in contact with Lisa Massey, because I actually got an email from her today from DEC, and she had given them some direction on dealing with the DEC. I think it's really up to the board on whether or not they want to see it proceed to public hearing. I think there were some issues still related to emergency access that staff and others felt were not quite hammered down yet. So that's where we stand as far as that's concerned.
do you think we should wait for the bridge study? What's the pleasure of the board?
Well, if we wait for the bridge, we're probably, if I had to guess, 5-10 years away. If we're gonna rebuild the bridge.
No, the bridge study.
The bridge study.
Yeah, but the study's gonna lead to, you know, that's not a good bridge. If something's gotta be done, we'll be going to the state for the money, and it's gonna be a long delay. The question is, are we willing to, the man has a point. It's property, it's developable, it's been paying taxes. There are houses up there now that use the bridge. The thing is, will it take the load of construction? Who knows? We don't know what those pilings are like until the bridge study's done. And I'm sure, from everything I've seen on bridges that have come down in Beacon, Lebanon, New Hampshire, the wooden pilings go. You get a really bad storm and things, and they go, so you're gonna have to rebuild it, really. That's really what's gonna have to be done. And I don't know what happens then. I mean, everybody's got rights and there's no money. Sorry, I'm just staying on a soapbox. I apologize for that.
And really, if I could just comment on it, the bridge is the bridge is the bridge. There's no getting around that. In terms of the law on seeker, what seeker says is you know, evaluating the completeness of an environmental impact statement, does it address the items set forth in the adopted scope? We believe at this point it does. We've now provided additional information on alternatives for emergency access. We've indicated our willingness to participate in the bridge situation at some level. What the law says is you evaluate impacts, you mitigate to the greatest extent practicable, and then the board has to, in its balancing, make a determination as to whether or not the project is consistent with the seeker regulations and whether in fact that has occurred. We believe that we have done that.
Well, we also have the responsibility to see if the mitigation is appropriate for the situation.
Right, and I don't know that we're there yet. I mean, it's possible that, you know, during construction, you know, we may have to put up a performance bond and that in some fashion provide some protection as far as, you know, construction vehicles over the bridge. We may have to give some serious thought to limiting the size of construction vehicles that are permitted to come into the property. We're not going to know that, you know, in the short term. But the bridge study was not part of the scope.
Mr. Miller, I was left with the impression that you had not really committed to these alternative things that were developed by Gillespie and Associates. Are you committing to provide these alternate?
We're committed to providing them in the draft environmental impact statement, absolutely.
So in other words, if we start down this road, those are incorporated into the design.
No. They're an alternative in the document. They are not practical, constructible alternatives. And we're happy to say that. I mean, seeker does not obligate you to build something that's not buildable or affordable or practical.
Well, right, but I realize it's got a steep grade, not quite as steep as your entrance to your site, but.
Well, it's
it
just
has
not a steep grade. The amount of rock excavation necessary to achieve that grade is a highway project in and of itself. And to impose that, on a project of 21 lots, when there's a viable means of ingress and egress, that's something that you as a planning board will have to decide, but we're not proposing to develop any of those alternatives. I want to be real clear about that. We're presenting them because you've asked us to evaluate them, but we do not believe that they're practically constructible.
I'm really, I don't want to speak for the entire board, just personally, I'm struggling with the fact, I understand, it's not fair to sit there and say, you know what? Because of that bridge, we really don't want to go forward with this large construction project. But I'm also struggling with the fact that I don't really want to make a commitment on the part of the town that sets in motion something that does put a key dependency on that bridge before we've had a chance to find out from our engineers really how safe that bridge is and whether there should be a no truck sign on that bridge already.
And just as an aside, Michael, the applicant did submit the alternatives, but the consultants have had a cursory look at it, but we haven't had an in-depth look at the alternatives because they just came in a few days ago. So we really would need to review those to see basically what they're saying. We haven't had a chance to do that yet.
Well, I have to say, these are not complicated drawings. They're road profiles and cuts. It took me 10 minutes to review them and ascertain what was happening out there. They've been done under the seal of a professional engineer. If you're going to...
We just haven't had a chance to look, because they weren't submitted.
But I understand what you're saying too, but we've also seen the photographs, and again, those timbers are tilting.
I hear you, and I think the planning board is in a very difficult position. You're not allowing us to move forward to a public hearing, but you're indicating that this is a public bridge, a public road, fire trucks can cross it, moving trucks can cross it, emergency vehicles can cross it, but we can't move our project forward? How does that possibly work?
Well, first of all, I didn't say I wasn't going to vote for it.
I'm sorry, I thought that's what you were saying.
I'm saying I was kind of struggling with this because this is a very large, so if you'd said, yes, don't worry, if the bridge proves to be a non-starter, that we will go with these alternatives?
Yeah, I don't think that we can say that. I think that, the cost of building these alternatives, is an extraordinary number. I mean, if you look at the road profile and the rock cut and the amount of materials that would need to be moved in order to create a 12% grade for an emergency access, we would rather put that money into the bridge, which would benefit the whole neighborhood.
If it's really that large, wouldn't it be better to just talk to the member of ECFM and perhaps negotiate a settlement out Carpenter Road?
I think that's been done.
That's one of the profiles that we're showing. It's one of there's two profiles, one coming down Central Hudson into Carpenter Road.
Right.
And the other one going through Frank's property.
One crossing Central Hudson into Carpenter Road, and it's the same amount of grade. I mean, it's...
Okay. I mean, what's the pleasure of the board? I mean, how do you guys feel about setting a date for a public hearing?
Wait, just one second. I mean, before you can set a date, the DES hasn't been declared complete yet. So that would be what you'd have to do first before you would set a date for a public hearing. You'd have to declare the DES complete, then you'd be circulating it to all the involved and interested agencies, and then setting a public hearing, okay?
Okay.
So just order steps. And I think, in absence of the town attorney and the planning board chair being here this evening, and also the fact that we got information that was submitted that we haven't had really a chance to review at this point, I think it might be best to hold the decision off until the next meeting. And at that point, if the board, and hope Lori would be back, and if the board thinks it's appropriate, would declare the document complete and then circulate and move the process towards public hearing.
Okay.
There's one further point that I'd like to just mention. Even if you were willing to invest the money in those alternate approaches, do we really want to do that to the environment? The amount of rock?
you know, I mean,
I think that's where the frustration comes in with the access through the other property.
Yeah.
Is the 12% grade, you're basically constructing almost a town road with drainage, you're paved, sub-base, foundation, stormwater, disturbance. I think when you start looking at the numbers, you're better served focusing on some improvements to the bridge. And I think, I mean, anything is doable. Anything's doable. It's just the money behind it and the disturbance behind that alternative.
Is it cheaper to replace the bridge?
I would like to move forward to a public hearing, but can we agree to wait 2 weeks to the next meeting and then determine the
Well,
completeness?
there's comments that they still need to address from our letters, unless,
Right,
I mean,
yeah.
have they addressed all your comments yet? I don't know. I have just a couple that are largely addressed, and I'm getting there, but I haven't seen the information yet,
So we delay 2 weeks, and at that point, we would also have the bridge study? Can we make sure?
hopefully.
We can work towards that. It's actually more than 2 weeks, right? Because of the dates,
Okay, yeah, this next one is May 7th.
it's May 7th, so I think we
So
have.
we target May 7th for really determining completeness on these points.
May I ask a procedural question? Typically, and I just need to know, typically when they deem the EIS complete and we circulate, it should be circulated with the public hearing, correct?
Yes, so you'll do it the same night, yeah. Generally, we do it the same night, yes.
We have a March 22nd letter, then we had a meeting in the beginning of April with the consultants. But since that date of that meeting and the date of this letter, we haven't seen a full submission of comment response.
Okay.
And I think we'd be
Yeah,
looking for that
we
for
owe
the
some,
meeting.
we owe some responses to that.
And I think we're close. We're close on
And
most of the
really-
issues. The main issue is emergency access. The rest of the issues are just a matter of details.
And I think
Right,
the day that we had the meeting, if I may, it was discussed that we should come for the discussion tonight.
Correct.
Before we move forward, and
Correct.
that's one of the reasons why, is that correct?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
But I also understand your point about wanting to start to get public input to this process. But, so let's move for completeness at the next meeting. Brendan, I apologize.
Yeah, I think it's feasible, yes, absolutely.
Okay, so we will get the bridge study.
And if I may, I'd like to actually say a couple of things. This project, it's been in the work for about 10 years, as you said. Due to some of the neighbors, one time you remember that, I guess you were on the board, we had to prove that we had rights up to the road. We had spent a ton of money, and we proved that, and so it's always been a stepping stone. And I just feel that every time we get closer to everything that, whether the professionals are asking, there's always the next thing coming in. And I agree the bridge has got, structural problems, but as of today, school buses cross every day. Cement truck, I just saw it the other day going through. People are doing their driveways with 10 wheelers, 20 ton of blacktop. So, there is a problem existing already, and I'm not saying not to address it, absolutely. And, in any way I could help, but my project shouldn't be stopped because of a bridge. And like the gentleman said, wait 10 years, which I believe him. That's when that bridge will be fixed, or that's how long it will take for the studies to go on. So it's just unfair to me. And the other question that I have, where does the threshold stop on emergency exit? That's an existing neighborhood. I understand I'm putting 21 homes up there eventually. I'm hoping for the next 10 years when the economy turns better. But what happens to that person that's got a 10-acre lot right out there? He's got a house, and he decides he wants to split that lot into 2 homes. Are you guys going to ask them to give you an emergency exit? Where does that fall in? So we're going to tell people they can't develop their properties up there anymore?
We asked the same set of questions.
So all I'm saying, like I said, we've been working with the board for the past 10 years, and I just, a little fairness, that's all. Not much more than that, just,
Okay,
I
so
just,
let's drive for the next meeting.
We'll
Are you
get
guys-
our responses together prior to your next meeting to make sure that your professionals are comfortable, and I appreciate your listening to us. And
We're trying to do what's fair here, and again, you understand our position about if the bridge is a problem. Because today, by the way, correct me if I'm wrong, there are instances where people who live over that bridge during major storms park their cars on the other side of that bridge for just that reason. So I mean, it's,
The elevation
I
of
mean,
that
if the bridge needed to be replaced, would you be willing to replace it?
We'd be willing to participate.
If I could put a toll bridge and charge all the rest of the people there.
I mean, you're gonna put 23 lots. You're gonna put
would you
23
take
lots
Easy
there,
Pass?
I don't know what the cost of a bridge replacement would be.
That might be something to find out.
You know, that may be something that your town engineer could answer. It's a town road. You amortize the cost of a bridge over 23 lots. How much can a small project bear before it becomes just stupid to try to build it? You know, it's like, you know, you take a project of this nature and you start to look at the potential profit of a home on a 3-acre lot in East Fishkill. How much do you have of each home to contribute towards the replacement of a bridge? I don't think you're going to get there, but I don't know for certain. Yeah, it's a good question.
One question I wish the legal advisor was here for tonight. Forbid that it ever happens, but we build 21 homes, and somebody's going over in a truck and it collapses, and people are killed. I'm sure that the people that they'd be suing the town, and would they say that the town contributed because we allowed more traffic of heavy trucks to go over and, you know, further, you know, desecrate the bridge or whatever?
I think you could count on it.
Yeah.
Because people do everything. They do frivolous things, they do serious things, they take chances in court, and
Right.
lawyers are the creative, you know, geniuses of the court system. So, you know, it's a valid question, and yeah, that's gonna happen. But if you can bring that bridge to a level that it meets a rating by the state, then I think you've got a very good basis for saying, yeah, this is something we can do. So that's all we're
Then at least
suggesting.
the town
Let's see if we can
could
get
say
it there.
The bridge was set by the state to be safe.
Okay,
Thank
so
you.
let's move forward let's adjourn this to move the next discussion to May 7th with an eye towards getting
Yeah, well, I
some
think
kind
we
of
just first need
assessment.
to know, when can you get your stuff in, do you know? Because you have to get it in 15, is it 15 days, Pam, before the meeting, so what, you have a calendar? But what about for any submission materials they're gonna give us for our next meeting? It should be 15 days. So what would that, do you have a calendar in front of you by any chance? Well, the May meeting's the 7th, so it has to be 15 days before the.
It has to be 15 days at the end of the month.
For us to review whatever you're submitting, we have to be 15. 22nd.
It's the 22nd, it's a week.
Can you do that? Okay.
Okay. So we don't have to make a motion to move it to the 5th, just schedule it for May 7th. Okay,
No.
okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, the next item, I'm not quite sure how to pronounce it, Pyrus Group, 1035 Route 82. Sir?
No, they're not here. This is like a pre-discussion,
Okay.
just to see if the board would consider.
Oh, so you're Mr. Pures.
Oh, I'll just kind of speak to the matter. I had a discussion with Mr. Piers, and he had asked me if there was any way that the planning board would consider the small addition that he plans on using for storage without him having to go through the full site plan process, because that would, the cost of that alone would far exceed this small addition that he wants to put on, and he would, at that point, reluctantly just scrap his plans to do it. So the discussion is whether or not we might consider allowing this 180 square foot addition that he plans on using for storage by virtue of a letter amendment to the file on the existing site plan. So if the board is willing to consider that, he'll make a formal application and come in for a formal discussion at a subsequent meeting.
I have no problem coming in for a formal discussion.
Do we really need him to do that? I mean,
It's a very small
Okay.
addition, he could use it, what's the big deal?
well, it's a commercial and it is a change of site plan.
It
Yeah,
it
I know.
won't,
You know,
it doesn't,
But
It doesn't add to parking requirements, it's
No.
just strictly for file storage for an insurance company.
So let me poll the board.
Did he pour a slab?
He poured a
Is there a
slab at some
foundation?
point, but we don't know when.
It's
It
not
wasn't-
any existing plans.
He claims the slab had been there for some time.
Is that
And
what
when I went and looked at it, I mean, the masonry looks like it's been there for a while, you know, the block, the slab, maybe it was ratty and he overlaid it, I really don't know, that kind of goes back some time. He started framing, I think, like about a year ago, and we stopped him on the framing, but it didn't appear, he claimed that the slab was there.
So how is all this air conditioning gonna work in here?
Yeah.
The ductwork, well, like I said, we stopped him, so.
I don't have a problem with building it. I mean, as long as it's done right. But I mean, do we?
Like I said,
can we
he's
just say,
agreed to
yeah,
either
go ahead,
remove
it's
it,
a site
or
plan
if the
change,
board
because-
will consider.
You guys want to just refer him to the building, get a building permit from the building department?
Well, even if we do that, it still has to be a letter from the planning board consenting to that.
I would just recommend that he provide a letter to the planning board and show like a conceptual plan of what he's planning on building so that you actually have kind of an as-built in case you need to do an enforcement action in the future of any sort, just so you know what's going to be there. And it doesn't have to necessarily be an engineered drawing, but just something.
Survey, a
Yeah,
page survey.
with a hand, whatever, drawn on what he's proposing to do and
the letter
listing what
needs
he's
to
proposing to
state
do and what
what
he's
it's gonna be
proposing to use.
used for as well.
Exactly,
Yeah.
what he's proposing to use it for.
Because it could turn into an office tomorrow, and two more people could be in there.
Absolutely.
Well, that would be in
The air
his certificate CO on it, that it's for storage only. That would be worded right in the building permit and in the certificate of occupancy.
So you guys comfortable with the idea of a letter that we give an up or down, you know, if
Right.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm fine with that.
Okay, very
Okay.
good, thank you.
Okay. Anything else we need to talk about tonight? Are you a student from John Jay?
I am.
No.
Okay, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.